this project is the main subject of the evening, and from here on we're going to do, I'll just dwell a little bit on the project itself, and then we'll do a more parallel kind of history of the evolution of the Parramata Female Factory Precinct, which is a large conglomeration of different institutional buildings and layered history, and those in Hudson. We'll see that they're very interesting parallels in time, and obviously thinking, even though we're two different parts of the world. So this is Bonnie here, and this Bonnie's hand, pointing at a piece of graffiti in the girls' home. So she's a former Parramata Girls' Home resident. It's important to understand the distinction because it operated as a welfare institution, even though it functioned as a prison. And they were sentenced to the children's court, they were given a term, they often kept their years and years after that, because the superintendent could decide what the fate of the girl. And in every other level, how it ran within, the kind of hierarchies between girls, and the punitive environment was very much run on prison system principles. So what we've been doing since early 2012, when we first received arts funding, is actually basically gathering momentum initially, going to the site, documenting, getting former residents to come along and become confident and feel safe to return, because imagine for people the difficulty of that, and a lot of the women haven't told their family. Some have. The early group more likely to have told their family because they'd been part of the Paragirl support group, and they developed a very close bond. But as time's gone on, we've got more and more new people who are returning for the first time after 15 years. So there is a very difficult and delicate process all the time for us. So we keep going. So you see the site here, this is various images. This is sort of how it looks today. This here is, in its last stage, and I'm going to go through the sequence of different institutional uses of the site. This here is a Magdalen laundry. You don't know much about Irish orphanages? So, yeah, because it was first established as a Roman Catholic orphanage, this institution. The nuns basically did what they know to do, and established that children should do hard labour, so the boys and girls in the initial period. And that building operated as a laundry until the very last, in 2004, as part of the Norma Park Periodic Detention, which is a women's prison, where they could also have children. So that kind of went on and on. And so these signs actually date from that period. So it's textiles.
Back then, what proportion of the children there were Aboriginal?
Okay, that's a very particular and important question. And there's a dual history that's different to the US. It's probably more parallel to American Indians than it is to American Americans. But there wasn't, the slaves were white in Australia, basically. And basically, the history of these institutions isn't the institute convict history because it was established as a site for incarceration of convict women. But then at some point, the histories weaved together. I don't know. This is one of the former residents, Christina Breen. She passed away this year at the age of 64, lymphoma. She here is demonstrating, she's next to that laundry, and she's demonstrating. We do a lot of things where, well, sometimes they just want to tell us, sometimes we do a lot of encouragement. We don't ever force people to recount traumas. Disclosure is the issue, so it's up to them. And often they want to do it quite privately, not in a group. But Christina had already written her life story. She knew she was going to live much longer. She was really wanting to record as much as possible. She's of Aboriginal descent, sorry, can't see her face. And here she's demonstrating a punishment that took place in that laundry. There was an area above the ground level called the loft, and there are rafters that are about this height. I've only been in there once, it's all pretty much closed off, public access. And you were forced as a punishment to scrub these rafters for up to 6 hours straight, and if you lowered your arms, you'd have to go into solitary. And it was covered in bird droppings, and that would run down, wet, and it ran into their lungs, and all the women who were forced to do this have lung disease consequence. Anyway, that's just one example. This is Gypsy, also of Aboriginal descent. She's here talking about a painting. She's a very active artist, creative in every way. In fact, she writes poetry, does performances, paints. and she went to an Aboriginal college, so she built a lot of confidence, and she's a really great woman. And she was seriously punished when she was a girl in that time, when she told things. But she's very open about it, so she's great to have around. And here she's talking about a painting she's done here at the next slide. And this is actually unfinished, because the finished version has another whole sort of several layers to it down here. And there's an image of the dorm, and you had a dorm that you were always in 1, 2, 3, or 5. And the girls rode up in their uniforms, bars and windows. And here is scrubbing. So they had to scrub every day for hours and hours this covered way. And if you got trouble, that was another punishment. Your sock was down, or the dress was too short, anything infractions. And they had numbers, they were all numbered. They didn't work all by name. So go on, next slide. And this is the cover way, where women, those girls scrubbed every day. They all rode up, we've got some historical image later, we see the kind of military style discipline along there. So we came across the site of conscience, the existence of the organisation must have been about 3 or 4 years ago, and we pretty much identified it as a significant way to shed light on it and really connect us internationally, because at the moment it's still a very invisible place, and for all of the work we've done, there are certainly lots of people who recognise it, but in terms of broader understanding of these institutions and that site, and as a significant, one of the most significant places in Australia, institutional histories, there's very little recognition. So being able to kind of join up and link up with other organisations like yours is a very empowering thing for us, and gives us a sense of credence, but also can then bring more attention and importance to preserving this site and creating actually what we see the place itself as a memorial. So there's been lots of activism throughout history on the site of the girls' home, and it was closed down as a consequence of a feminist group actually protesting at this very spot here in the 70s, 74. So, that role of actually being very vocal at some point about what's happening behind closed doors can make change, and that's certainly what the women witnessed themselves. And so in some events, we've actually not only do art projects, I'm going to show you a little bit of what we do, which is the art making, but we see it's very important to activate the community, to bring people together, and to do very healing ceremonies. So we were able to actually engage with a woman called Leanne Tobin, funnily enough, Tobin as well, and Margaret. And she's a Darug artist and has worked in prisons for 15 years. And we invited her to come and work with us alongside.
Lily, could you explain Darug?
Darug is the Aboriginal tribe of that particular area. So before colonisation, there were 1,000 what we call language groups, that's Aboriginal tribe. Now there are several hundred, so they're being effectively wiped out. So it's her work involves very much around trying to reconnect Darug people with places, memory, stories. So she came and did a whole lot of art projects, sound installations, created kind of sculptural works and installations, we'll see one in a minute. And this here is a smoking ceremony, and that's a traditional Aboriginal ceremony, which most people think is kind of just like token, lights and leaves, and smoking, all very nice. But what happened out of this is that Leanne went back to her community and mentioned that she was working with Paragirls, which is what they call themselves, and discovered that aunts in her family had been through the institution. But that's actually uncommon to now address the question of Aboriginal, the number of Aboriginal women that went through. In most cases, Aboriginal people were sent somewhere else. They were rarely incarcerated or institutionalised close to home, because they needed to be removed and assimilated by separation into white society. And the other distinguishing fact is that there were two policies kind of that ran in parallel. And one is the systematic institutionalisation and forced separation of children who were in poverty or what they deemed to be exposed to moral danger or neglect. That's what they call the forgotten Australians in Australia. There's been an inquiry and apology, and they numbered about 500,000 people going through that system. And then the other parallel history is stolen generations, which was a policy of forced assimilation of Aboriginal children. So they removed them from their community, from their families, and often they had one white parent. So they saw that those children should not grow up under Aboriginal culture, but should be fully assimilated into white society and completely removed from their families. So you have this dual, very similar history, and at some point they intersect. So especially second generation, third generation, the kids who were stolen, people who were stolen generation, stay in the system and their children are removed, but they look white. So they segued into the white welfare system, which is Parramata Girls' Home. But a lot of those girls were shipped in and out, but they'll talk about being in 10 or 12 different institutions, some of them Aboriginal only, some not. So, and it's not well understood in Australia, so don't worry if you don't get it. Nobody gets it in Australia. It's very confused. It's a very difficult history to try and unravel. That's why we're telling stories about.
Do you find like the whole race thing is I mean, I know how it is here, but over there, is it that kind of conflict? Because I know people here who have mixed backgrounds, they have a hard time with stuff like this. You know, you're either, it's that figuring out which world you fit in.
Yeah.
If you have darker skin and darker features,
Yeah.
you're going to go to the black side. Or if you're white and who passes white, you try to, do they have that problem in Australia too?
In the general community, probably more so. There's a lot of issues around also because some people have so many children grew up completely removed from their community and culture that issue is there, but they don't know whether they were white, black or white, and trying to reconnect with that is very problematic. And there's of course always issues within the community of Aboriginal people as well. But the Paragirls kind of have no issue with that at all because they lost everything. So for them to struggle to find out where they came from, what cultures left, any family history at all, is so much tied to having an identity whatsoever because they generally left and completely never spoke again about going through the home. So here we're just trying to have a good time and enjoy making these works. And next image, some of it's drawing, go to the slide. And here we're doing kind of work where it's going to culminate in a handmade print where the women make it into books themselves. And the living traces is really, that they can remark, return to the place and do marks now that may or may not directly, just by being there, they are reconnecting with that site. And so we set up a way of working where there's these plasterboard surfaces and they can literally sort of scratch into it. So there's this kind of direct mnemonic relationship between the past and the present without having to overstate it or command people to do anything. The next slide is let's do the video, which is 3 minutes. I know we're all getting late, but now I'm just going to do the double historical parallel. Is that the right one? Yeah, that one. This is just a recent kind of very short video. I think it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
Even though you've been told all these things about yourself and you're told to never amount to anything and achieve anything or whatever, you can't change the world, you actually can. And you can from the bottom. If you're one of the most oppressed, or you can still rise from there and challenge. And that's a really very comforting feeling that really keeps driving me to do this.
Until about 2003 when there was a reunion at the Parramata Girls' Home. And that was a huge thing. And one of the girls had mentioned at the reunion that they were seeking counselling and that there were women there that day that would take your name and you could go to Parramata and seek counselling. And I thought to myself, well, I'd really like to get all the little puzzles of me that have been fragmented during the years of my childhood come together so that I understand me, so that I can be there more function in the world and with people. And so I thought, yes, I'm going to do this.
You make this a place, for children's there's, to me, I think there's not enough done for youngsters.
Well, it's also about justice too, social justice, that these things did actually happen to us, because that's also part of the story, that one's been hidden, and two, this sort of discounting about what happened to you didn't really happen. You just think it happened. So this sort of, disempowering, stealing our experiences that way. We're not allowing those experiences to be validated, in the Australian narrative.
So in the next 3 weeks or so, I'm going just for that. It took me a while to get my thoughts around everything, and then I remembered that just along here somewhere it was, I'm pretty damn sure, and I just saw a tiny bit sticking out, and I got it out. So somewhere along the end of the skirting, I scratched. Tiny, it'd be small. Oh, little China doll, when did you arrive? When I was just 10 years old, plus another 5. Dear little China doll, you seem like Walking Dead. That I am. Everywhere, except inside my head. How do you know, China doll, that you did survive? I cut myself every week to feel if I'm alive. You're much too bad for me to fix, little China doll. Your mind is strong, but your heart's so very cold. Just throw me back on the heap they had since I was 10 years old.
You've got this little girl tucked away. You want to help her, but I'm frightened I might hurt her if I let her out. And while she's still in there, she's okay, but she's not.
Like a croquet. The other line is like 2 cuts. So you cut that side and you cut that side to reveal that line. No, but you know what that is.
And I can actually look at that now. I'm not caught anymore. And it's only happened since I met people that are like me.
I'm not ashamed, I'm proud. I know I'm a Norma. I'm not ashamed of that.
So it's just to give a sense of the things that happen. And not all our workshops, have so many people or are so active. So it was great. We were proud in a good time. So, this is the sort of about these dual histories and connecting these histories to there's a kind of global story here, and that what you do here in Hudson actually is significant to understanding other places, other sites. However, we need people working on a local level, developing new ways of telling those stories in whatever way you feel comfortable, in order to understand in other places. It's actually translating it all the time. And I think you can walk into, I don't know whether Hudson seems to have a plethora of institutions, whether that's the case. As I sort of did a bit of research before coming here on the kind of institutional history of the area, I discovered it was just so many sites, and yet they seem invisible. So I think that's there's a lot of work to be done. So actually, just go back for a second. So that's this is how it sort of began with Parramata, and these are the Pentonville prison, which is a solitary system prison. So it was kind of the wave that went throughout Eastern State Pen. This was an iteration of that system, which was then turned up in Australia in terms of the kind of punitive way in which people were secondarily punished and put into solitary. We did have actually solitary system prisons operating for a period as well. That sort of remains part of the function of the prison system, psychiatric units and children's juvenile detention, and was part of the welfare system as well. So that's Parramata. You can sort of see, well, it's pretty clear to me. That's group foster care, it was plenty fun. So this is sort of really just what I was saying now. I thought I'd write all that because I might not remember. But play on. So here we go. This is just a very quick history that does the double sort of set of parallel evolution of these kind of welfare to prison and how they're in kind of partnership in a sense. So this is, as I was saying, as you went upriver, Parramata River. So the first arrival, I don't know if you know anything about Australia's colonisation? Yep. A little bit? Yeah. So 1788, first fleet. They landed in Sydney Harbour. There was no arable land, no fresh water. So they had a bit of an emergency on their hands. They went upriver and discovered, well, that's fair, the Aboriginal people are happily residing because there's lots of pasture. But they needed labour, so of course they're shipping more convicts up in these kind of transportable prisons on wheels and putting them out to assignment. So within about 15, 20 years, fairly early on, they realised there were no women. And Aboriginal women weren't going to get any use, so they had to start to transport convict women. And by 1821, the state, colonial government realised and felt a moral responsibility for the fact these women were unmarried or were married in the United Kingdom and were living without shelter, and who knows where, who with, clearly in at moral risk. So they built a welfare institution, the Female Factory. It was an asylum. In parallels. But in the workhouse model, they had to actually they had to do work. It wasn't like the state could not just support these people. So this is the beginning of the textile and laundry labour in the Female Factory. And these here are actually the solitary confinement cells. And actually some inspectors came to the UK and discovered that there was no ventilation, no light, and contrary to all even the British rules on solitary confinement. So you have an even more severe kind of iteration of that practice. And you can see they're very much set up along prison architectural lines. So this house here was actually the centre through which women were selected for marriage. So a pardoned convict would come and actually choose a wife. I don't think we would even say this. Otherwise you were kept in the factory. And they could be shipped out for assignments as well. And eventually there was a classification system, go to the next slide, which separated the women into three classes, and the third class were punished to hard labour, breaking stones, and that actually pertains to the physical position of children, the Roman Catholic orphanage. So here is what happened was that eventually the more and more Irish Catholic women were coming out, and there were the British saw these as a threat and a criminal class. And women at the first period were permitted to keep their children up to the age of 4 in the Female Factory, and then they would be sent out to orphan schools. But as more and more Catholics came along, the Roman Catholic Church decided, well, we should do something to cater particularly for the Catholic children. And so they established, for a very short period, 42 years, the Roman Catholic Orphan School, just adjacent, overlooking those blue gates, which are the gateway into the penitentiary yard, where there was actually a tall stone, 3-story solitary confinement cells, and they broke stones, and the children looked onto their mothers in that yard. And that's still a view today, but the girls in the home could see the truth. So next slide, these are like the children. So initially it was boys and girls in that period, and then after 42 years, the state said, well, we don't want Roman Catholics to do their own thing, we want to operate this orphanage ourselves. So next slide. In the interim, the Female Factory is torn down, and out of the stones they build the first Lunatic Asylum in the colony. That operates up until 1983 in various guises under various names. And today there's actually, just about 2 months ago, the still operated as a psychiatric unit, but outpatients called Cumberland Hospital. So next slide. Just go to review here. Okay, so now 1887. This is the same date, 1887, as the establishment of the orphanage, I think. So we have these kind of like exact same year. Where are we? A bit dark here. 1887. So, so we'll see very shortly that the Parramata Industrial School for Girls is instituted in 1887, same year as the House of Refuge here in Hudson. We kind of flipped history, but they're close. So who knows whether there were the colonists were actually looking to other sites and practices, where it was coming from. Somebody needs to do this research to understand more how it transpired. The top two hemispheres, you had almost exactly the same thing going on. And the same premise, that training, this reformation idea, was going to actually help deal with the problems in society when they actually just made them worse, as we all know. So I actually had the fortune of being able to Tracy took on an intrepid tour of prison just before. And this is like the weirdest picture. What are they doing with those dolls? Anyway, I mean, they're all sort of weird practices.
They made those dresses out of crepe paper.
Oh, yeah, the crepe paper, that's interesting. On top.
Getting ready for May Day.
Anyway, apparently it was for fun. Now, this image is a little bit sad. The site actually doesn't look like this. This is the back of the main building of the home. And the same week we got our first major arts grant, the building burned down.
Wow.
And that's months and months later, like, you could see vines, or it was just left. And they said, it was an electrical fault. It was, you could say it was destroyed by neglect. And that's quite interesting. The women always say, well, it's like us. We've been abandoned and neglected, and the site itself reflects their experience. That's why they want to save it. You would think, a lot of people go, forget about it, get rid of it, because it's too traumatic, but it's quite the opposite. So these are just a few historical images, very early period, about 1910, all the uniforms, the laundry. We find bits and pieces of those early kind of objects occasionally lying around. There's no museum or anything, because we don't have the possession domain site. Keep going. Here's some of the background, some of the kind of through the ages, from 1900 through the 70s. Here we see an Aboriginal girl quite clearly. Quite rare that they look so Aboriginal, but they say about 30% Aboriginal. And it's military kind of lineup. Now here's something that's quite significant, what they call eyes to the floor. People to the right, this. This was, you have to stand, not look, and not speak. There's a lot of that going on in the world. And I'll talk about that. If you did, you got sent to solitary. Scrubbing, hospital beds, it's thorough institutionalization. Keep going. Now this is kind of the latter period where there started to be outrage. There were riots and demonstrations, and the feminists were kind of on board and basically saying, well, this can no longer go on. But of course it had to be the institution can't just stand there and be nothing, so there were various proposals, and one was actually to have a prison for sex offenders. But fortunately this was just after there'd been this outcry about, from the various feminist groups about what had happened. And of course, even today people were unaware that women were abused there, so it's hardly appropriate to put sex in prison. But then it was Norman Park's period extension, actually till 2004, so that's around about 20 years. And they partitioned off all the main building. So very different in that main building to how it was for the women. Yeah. We're going to wrap up very soon. Skip through. Okay. So similar kind of time frame from the 70s, mid-70s, 74 is when the Parramata Girls' Home was closed down. It wasn't until 1980 that you had prison begin. So this reuse of sites and continuing use and a way forgetting of its history by the continuous occupation. So we'll just skip that slide. And then I thought this is just a couple of other places that Tracy suggested could be open to being able to work with in this area that have not been explored, that no project has been done, any work on, and I'm hoping that all the various approaches that I've presented tonight might give you some ideas. I'm very open for you to just keep scrolling through these slides. So you can see here, sorry, just one, the same kind of iteration. Almshouse before, Lunatic Asylum, and then a teaching school for girls. They're kind of very parallel and similar kind of iterations. So next slide. Now the reason this came up is because of a particular story, and we have someone here who has done a book that I found really fascinating and inspiring. So if you want to stand up, Darby, for a second. Yeah. So we probably all come across the lives they left behind. Does anyone know about this book and the exhibition project? Yeah. So Darby Panning is in fact the author and instigator of a particular project, and maybe we can sort of devolve into a chat at the end and tell people a bit more about that. But the thing of discovering these suitcases of abandoned histories in a way as an opportunity to really delve in and tell stories about people who've been completely, forgotten and their story never acknowledged. So, and I was trying to track down the connection between, her story, Mary Roche, one of the women's covered in your book, and it's classic sort of like detective thing. I was like, okay, so she was in the Hudson Almshouse, but then I thought the dates don't match up. So I'm not sure, and this is for you to maybe go off and work out.
No, and you know what's interesting? She wasn't in that building.
No.
She was in the building that was the library.
Because I looked through the dates,
Yes.
and by that time it was the Reverend running his seminary, 1843. So dates don't match up.
But that's very interesting because that's what the medical record says, that when she showed up, which was in 1869, and she had come from the Columbia County Courthouse. But you know what's interesting? I was very briefly the public librarian in that building, like 35 years ago, and there were still the chains and the things that people were manacled to were still in the basement.
Okay.
I don't know if they're still there.
Yeah, no, I remember
Or
the
what
floor
we're talking
too.
about.
Yeah, I had a teacher who worked there, and she said you could go on the third floor in certain stores and highways. They used to.
Yeah, that was the story of Mary Rhodes. She was.
Where's that building again?
Is it standing?
I don't
Yeah.
know if that's still
Oh,
standing or
this.
not.
What did I find? An additional page. I mean, you're welcome to actually read through the copious notes I've got here, which I'm not going to cover. So I've got a whole page that I dug around and tried to figure out what was possible since the State Street institution was, by that stage, they say that it closed as a lunatic asylum in 1834.
So you say it was a private residence then?
No, that was a seminary was being run. It was a gap between the female, what was it called? The female academy.
Right.
And they say Dr. White's asylum closed in 1843 when the state asylum in Utica opened. I don't know where I found this, but I went through all the things. And his patients were transformed there. And so then there's a gap in the time, and I read somewhere that J.B. Haig, Reverend, was running a seminary for women or girls at that time, and then officially became the Hudson Female Academy in 1851. However, there was the Columbia County Hall House and Almshouse.
And that was open during those
Yeah.
the same year?
Yeah. But also the other question is, why wasn't she, because officially she should have gone to, anyway, this is to...
Can I just say something? When we have done similar kinds of detective work, one of the things that's very difficult about doing this kind of work is that many times you have histories done by someone who, makes a mistake.
Yes, absolutely.
And that mistake lives on and
Yeah.
on
And
and
gets
on,
perpetuated.
and
Yeah.
people repeat
Yeah.
it. So,
Yeah.
I think that we come into, that happens a lot in
Yes.
this kind of.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether the history that that I sent you
Yeah.
that's on the website of
Yeah.
the Galvan Foundation, which
Right.
is refurbishing the
Yeah.
site.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's,
Where they got that
the
from.
dates are
Yeah.
correct.
And I think the thing is to actually, it keeps going, because this was part of that story, she ended up in chains, arriving in chains, so it's a kind of scary thing. But the thing is that I guess that what's rich in that space is there are contested and unresolved histories, and that's where you can work very creatively with multiple narratives and layers and conflicting histories in one space. That historians don't tend to like that approach because they want a single narrative and a resolved history, but history's not like that.
Exactly.
And for example, at the same time you have Mr. White's insane asylum. It says most of whom were cured, all the patients, 300, most were cured and all benefited. And then the inquiry at the same time that says the Willard report, no care provided and treatment was unspeakably terrible. People in chains, etc. So very conflicting, opposite kind of accounts. So, and that's where it's your role is to actually mine and excavate and present those, because that's part of why we have what's happening inside institutions and outside, completely different perspectives. So, yeah. So I think that's there are plenty more, as you see, like so many places, and the images speak for themselves. Yeah, the more dug around, I got kind of excited actually. And just because it's still operating as a prison doesn't mean you shouldn't
Oh,
come.
can you go back just a minute to the kindergarten?
Yeah.
I never heard of this one.
Yeah,
We just
ran across it.
There's a park.
That's why it's called
Right,
State
yeah, there's a
Farm
park
Road.
there, it's right on State Farm Road in Kinderhook, where there's the kind of the town park
You used
there.
to be able to actually go in.
I had it, yes, those buildings were open at one point, but I don't
And they
think they
had
are
social
anymore.
services out there, and I had a friend who worked out there, and she said the one building you could actually go in, she had to go get people out of there, because people would just go in and vandalize and everything. And actually right to the side is like, there's like a volleyball and baseball field, and they actually have a park out there in the summer. So, and because my niece went there, it's like, oh, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really clear, like we've been very lucky to be able to get onto our side at the time we have before it was up for development. So the whole thing we don't know what's going to happen. We're lobbying very hard for at least our section to be reserved in some way that addresses its history. But these sites are abandoned. I mean, those histories are just left to rot and disappear. So
The Willard, last year, I was supposed to go there, and they had opened it to the public
Yeah.
because they had the suitcase. You mentioned the suitcase where they found the suitcases.
Derby project.
That was over 100 years old. I mean, you probably know all about it. And we were supposed to go and look. And I'm a photographer, so I want to get pictures. But they had so many people that they shut it
They
down.
do. It's interesting. The same day, we also had a memorial service there because there was a man who was an inmate for many years who was the unpaid grave digger. He was a patient there, and these local women for years had fought the Office of Mental Health to try to get him his burial site memorialized and put a stone with his name on it, and they wouldn't allow it. You know, he's been dead since I don't know, 1969. So it was these women they were just tenacious. And they finally got a New York Times reporter to come and walk around the grounds with them and point out like what was basically all these thousands of graves that weren't marked. And the guy wrote this story that made the Office of Mental Health look really, really bad on the front page of the Times. And suddenly it was their idea to have a ceremony to honor all the people there. And so so that last year they actually allowed us to put the marker and they had a big ceremony. And it was the same time.
Yeah, well, they put
There
it
was a
on
traffic jam for a
Facebook.
while.
Yeah, I was looking. They put it on Facebook, and my friend had called because she does so she's a mental health worker, and she called because she wanted that history, and she was like, "Do you have tickets?" Because you see all these people saying they're going, and there's like thousands of people going, and she's like, "I want to see it." They're like, "No, you'll be fine," and they shut it down.
I think it's
they got
amazing
one or
that they
two.
don't open it more often? Because there's clearly a lot, I mean, because it's the middle of nowhere and thousands of people showed up to see it.
It's right on one of the lakes. Up in the Finger Lake. It's beautiful. Yeah, I still want to go.
Yeah, there is a desire, I think, you know, in a broader, in a sense, like
Yeah.
across so many people, experiences, different, completely different cultural backgrounds to be able to understand and access these places. So I got to cut off. But I think, you know, this is kind of where it's come for us. You know, it really does empower people who feel marginalised to sense that they have a voice, to be recognised for the time that they have, because we've got a short, very small window of time with each of them. They die very young as a result of what they went through.